power women we have on this stage, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't get any better than this. And, you know, as I started by, in my introduction, I think each one of these women has not just broken boundaries and created milestones, but they've done it with courage, they've done it with grace and humility, and while sharing their story. So let's, it is storytelling time, so let's get down to it. And of course, then we will get their insights on what it will take for us to get more women into the workforce and ensure that women get to the top and achieve leadership positions as well. But Radhika, I'm going to start with you. You know, I was telling Shoini at the start of the program about you coming out there and talking very openly about the fact that you were 20 and the fear of rejection had got to you so much because you had been denied the opportunity of getting into a consulting job 7 times that you actually considered jumping off a 19-story building. For you to have had the courage to come out and share this story with the world in a world where perfection is expected of women, what was that like?
Thank you, Shireen. You know, I hadn't planned on sharing this story. I grew up, and I think there's a lot of commonality with what Masaba said, a little not so happy about the way I looked. And then I went through that bout of rejection. And one day, as a part of an Edelweiss leadership session, I learned about storytelling. And something spoke to me in that, and I told the story that I told on stage to a number of colleagues of mine. And when I did and I saw their reactions, I said, you know, the world actually loves you for your imperfections. And so I went to Geo Theatre one day. I took a day off. I didn't tell anybody in my family or anybody in my office that I was going to go do that talk. And I spoke to a group of 500 strangers about that story. And the person who coached me through this said, this single talk is going to change your life, Radhika. And I said, you have no idea what you're talking about. And he was absolutely right. Because one, everything, much of the public impact I've been able to have has been a result of doing that talk, the girl with a broken neck, and coming out with my vulnerabilities. The second is, it shaped my own sense of self-confidence. I think my self-confidence went from here to here the night I did the talk. Because I realized everybody is connecting to me for my imperfections. Till date, I have people write to me saying, I'm a guy in Bangladesh, you spoke about your broken neck, I have a cleft in my left cheek, your talk made me feel better. A girl in Mumbai will write, I have a bald patch on my head, I saw that talk, I feel a little bit better. And today I got a note from a reader of my book, and she said, empowerment isn't just providing resources. It is also sharing stories and providing inspiration. Because for many women, we didn't grow up with role models beyond the traditional faces in media. And even when we heard those stories weren't told with shades of grey. So she said, thank you for telling me your story with shades of grey.
No, absolutely. And that's exactly why I said that, you know, this was my experience as well. Interview after interview, the past 15 odd years, I would walk away feeling like it's too good to be true. And I'm so glad that at least women on this panel have been courageous and brave enough to share their stories and their vulnerabilities. I'll come back to you. But Dipali, I want to address this issue with you as well. Got married at 18 and at 30 decided that you wanted to get into business. And the reason that you decided to get into business is because you have 2 daughters and you said, I have to open that door for them. That was the motivation. So take me through that to now running a business that operates across 50 different geographies, across multiple, customers from the Walmarts of the world to Costco's. What has that been like?
You know, thank you, Shireen. It's such a great company out here. So let me give you my story. You know, I was seeing at the back the audacity of ambition, and I think we all have a right to dream, don't we? Women, whether, you know, so, you know, for me, that's where it began. I was a homemaker, and you guys have all been professionals, but I was a homemaker when I started and thought to start working. I'm from a Marwari community, very conservative. And having 2 daughters and not a son was a big deal. And for me, I realized that in the sense of that I have to create the legacy. And I think all of us, whether it's the male or the women, both have a right for financial independence. And why not? And I think that's the legacy. That's the legacy for me was very, very important. I wanted my daughters to know that they have that opportunity to do what they want to do. And I think that's where it was. And it hasn't been easy for me, Shireen, as well. When you talk about the businesses that I lead, even the textile business when I started leading, today we are $1 billion in top line, but when I started it was just $400 million. But the word was around that, is Welspun really serious about doing anything? They have a woman at the helm of affairs, she doesn't know anything. And the irony was, the other side, the customer was a woman, the merchandiser was a woman, but it was a male-dominated society, a male-dominated industry. And I said, okay, let me do this. And I played on my strength there, Shireen. It wasn't about that, okay, I didn't know textiles. I didn't know how the cotton was bought, how spinning was done, how was weaving done. I didn't know anything. I played on my strengths. And I think, Shireen, for all of us sitting here, I think we all have our strengths. We all need to play on that and see what we can do. And for me, I think that was a very interesting journey that began from there. And today, when I started, and today when I say today, we are highest in innovation, the ESG that we do, you can see a different perspective. And when you talk about that ambition, and we all urban here, but I have around 20,000 people working in my factories, and 30% are women. And imagine that ambition there. She leaves at 5 a.m. to come for a shift in the morning, doing everything, but an ambition to earn so that she can give a better life to her children. I think it's a dream. And I think, Shireen, if we all can do that, if we can really make and inspire women. So for me, that's what it is. I think if I can open that door for those many women, I can open that door for those women in the communities who are earning around 20,000 rupees, sitting in the village where they can give and buy a better kind of a life for their kids. I think that's what it is. And it is this India we are talking about. We are sitting in Mumbai. It's that India in the hinterland you're talking about.
Neetu, let's talk, 8%. I was talking to Dipali about that 8% number. You're a chartered accountant, one of the brightest young chartered accountants recognized so by the ICAI. And what, 8% chartered accountants over 20 years ago, and today that number is again about 30-odd% or 20%. A significant improvement there. Take me through your own journey, Neetu, and now from Jyoti Laboratories to CFO to Managing Director of VIP Industries.
Yeah, it has been an interesting journey. Tough anyways, that has to be because we are women. But yes, I'm from a very conservative Marwadi family. So to do a CA itself was a task. And as soon as I finished my graduation at the age of 20, and I'm from a conservative family who even didn't allow me to go to a co-ed college. So I was said that if you want to go to a college, then only girls' college, otherwise no college. So from there to here, it's a journey. And at 20, as soon as I finished my graduation, I was told that abhi shadi kar denge. But yes, I said, no, I want to do CA. And my dad said, nothing doing. Whatever you want to do, go to your in-laws' house and do. I am not allowing. You have to get married, otherwise I'll not get a boy, because CA means 3 to 4 years. And you're already 20 and 24 pay. I don't think you will get a good boy. And I did not leave it. I actually started crying. Next 7 days, I did not leave him till he said yes. So yes, he said yes.
The power of tears.
Power of tears, and I would say perseverance and not leaving it. And date raho, ki I have to do it, and he allowed, and that's how it happened. And then the time came when I was about to get married, and he started seeing boys. Again, a similar challenge. Every boy who was a chartered accountant, knowing how difficult it is, still wanted a housewife. they didn't want a chartered accountant. And then we got one biodata where chartered accountant, service class family, my father-in-law was working with Grasim. And I thought this is a good chance because somebody who is in service class might be more progressive as compared to the others. So before my dad met this boy, I went to a Yellow Pages, searched his number because those days there was no mobile.
Well done.
And called him to meet. And three things which I told him that time was, one, I will decide whether I need to work or not. Second was, my complexion is dark. He was very fair. I said, generally in Marwadis, you know, this black and white is quite prominent. I don't want, I have no makeup on my face. Please look at me and decide. And the third thing was, every father wants to give more than what he can to his daughter, so please do not ask for dowry. And these three things, he got confident, and he loved my confidence, and he's my husband today. And he's helped me reach my career. He built my career. Many times he has sacrificed his career for me. And yes, journey started. Then I started working with Keval Kiran. I was quite happy. 2 years passed away. And then one day in Ascent, I saw that there's a company who has advertised a finance professional requirement. Only women should apply. In 2000, okay? And I told my husband, I have to work for this company only. He said, you don't even know what the profile is. You've not met them. How can you make this judgment? I said, in 2000, this is 2000, a company who has guts to write that for a finance professional, those days it used to be only men apply. And they wrote this, so I salute them and I want to work. It really worked very well for me. I started as an assistant manager and left as a vice president, worked for 17.5 years, and did everything which a finance professional can dream of in that organization. And then Greaves, and finally VIP Industries I joined in 2020, peak of COVID, when our business was zero. I think did some good work. And the promoters gave me appreciation, and today I got this role just 7.5 months ago.
Neera, I promised you I wouldn't come to you first, so I'm not. But, you know, I want to understand from you, coming back to India, deciding to do Dasra, and now the world of philanthropy, and where do women find themselves when we talk about not just benefiting from the giving, but also in the giving economy today?
So, I mean, I think it's exciting and so inspiring to hear everyone's stories, but I think that we're at an amazing point here, even in India, just to see the role that women can play. And in philanthropy, we've seen in the last 25 years, we are working with 300 families, and 70% of them are actually women-led. Now, they may not have the wealth, but they are leaning into the philanthropy, making the decisions, really starting to define the kind of change and the kind of world that they want to see, and that we see as quite powerful and what that can translate to. But for me, even hearing Masaba, the conversations here, even when we're working with the philanthropists on one side or NGO leaders on the other, I don't think we can underestimate the Indian cultural context of patriarchy and how much that plays into our lives, and recognizing that leadership here, whether in philanthropy or otherwise, there's something very special about the way that we are here in India that we should embrace, but there's also a whole lot of other things that probably we need to work towards. But I'm quite optimistic, or have great expectations.
What gives you the optimism?
I think it's the way that women approach philanthropy. I think it's the way that women see intersections, are willing to facilitate collaboration, much more partnerships. And I don't mean this in a cheesy, because we're nurturing, therefore it kind of work. It's that these feminine attributes, actually, it's our time now that this is what will bring greater leadership, whether in philanthropy or otherwise, and that the masculine attributes of leadership are becoming less and less relevant in our times.
Well, we hope that some of this will actually translate into change and much more change on the ground. But Naiyya, let's come to you now, because, you know, many of the stories that we've heard here on this side of the panel, and of course Dipali included, you know, battling with constraints, battling with challenges. What was the experience like for you? Because you're part of the internet economy. You're an entrepreneur that started in a post-liberalization world here in India. What was that experience like for you?
You know, first of all, it's a privilege to be here, and congrats again, Shireen. I mean, this is fantastic. It's amazing to see a community of amazing women come together, and men. Also, by the way, this seems to be an HBS row, just out here, just calling out. You know, Shireen, I think I've always, I didn't realize it when I was growing up, because my mother was a very, very strong role model for us, and she's always been a very, like, sort of vibrant and a very ambitious woman. And I've seen my mother and father play a very equal partnership at home, right? So for me, it was never about even feeling like my gender was something to me. It didn't really even factor into how I live my life. And I think what ended up happening was actually entrepreneurship was a great, I think, eye-opener. Because, you know, when I moved back from Boston, I've shared the story many times before. I think, first of all, of course, I was beginning a company like Baby Chakra, which was, you know, very, very focused on serving women and mothers, right? And it was, you know, completely based on this premise of the whole data, digital device, democracy, and the movement there. But very few investors on the other side who I was interacting with, who, of course, were male in the most part, would even get the need, right? And they'd be like, oh, let me talk to my wife, let me talk to my daughter, let me do, I'm like, well, you know, talk to me, I'm the entrepreneur, I know this space. So I think there was that one piece that stood out to me. The second piece, of course, was being a sole woman founder. And number three, you know, being kind of a diversity candidate. I'd done NLS as my undergrad. I'd gone to HBS, which I thought was good enough. I'd done McKinsey, but, you know, I wasn't from one of the IITs. Yeah. So, you know, starting a consumer tech platform in the early days, you know that time, right? It was all about, like, how will you make a consumer tech platform scale, and what do you know about product? Of course, you know, I keep on saying this. I think all entrepreneurs are irrational optimists, and nothing succeeds like success. And, you know, when we saw the traction come in, you know, more than 20 million mothers, 10,000 doctors on our platform, crazy levels of engagement, that's when people really started taking us seriously. So, you know, even recently, you know, and Shireen and all candid, I shared the news with you, right? I got elected on the governing body of the Tech Entrepreneurs Association of Mumbai, which, you know, represents the $50 billion Bombay tech entrepreneur ecosystem, right?
How many women?
I'm going to come to that, right? And while, of course, I'm very visibly 7.5 months, 8 months pregnant right now with our second one, the reason I stood for the governing council elections, which is, you know, was done with 46 unicorn founders, was because when I went to the Mumbai Tech Week, and I told a couple of my fellow entrepreneurs there, I was like, where are the women? Yeah. We need more women. And, you know, today I'm so proud to say that the governing council of team actually has 2 women. There's Akanksha and there's me. And then there's, of course, Akrit and Harsh and a bunch of other folks, right? So I think every time as an entrepreneur, and especially as a woman entrepreneur, you have to push your way. But again, the good news is nothing succeeds like success. So the more successful you are, the more people you find batting for you and for your side.
No, absolutely. And congratulations, by the way. She's due in a couple of months from now, but, you know, in June, so that's almost here. But has it really changed, Naiyya, you know, for a female entrepreneur, and especially a female entrepreneur that's not necessarily doing a product or a platform or providing a service to a women-driven economy or a women-driven market? Is the funding happening?
We know the numbers, Shireen. We can talk about them ad nauseum, right? I mean, less than 2%, maybe at best 8% India, you know, venture funding going to women-led founders, etc. But, you know, here's where I have hope, right? First of all, I think the input metrics are very positive. If you look at the IITs and the batches graduating, you know, when I've spoken pretty much every year from the beginning at the eCell and entrepreneur, like the eCell summit at IIT Bombay, and every year I see the audience more and more fuller with women. And I asked the person who was accompanying me, I was like, how many women do you have in your batch this time? She said 25%. And I remember the first year I'd spoken, which was, I think, 2016, they had less than 10%. right? So you kind of see a doubling of numbers.
Yeah.
So it's one of those nice S-curves you're seeing play out in the input on engineering and the sciences itself with women representation. The second also, I think on the investor side, there's a lot more conscious investing and a lot more thoughtful investing because the data is out there that women-led companies do better. While they're smaller in number, but they do better than a lot of the male counterparts. So I think the data is now speaking, and data speaks truth for the most part, however much you might want to rub it the other way. And that is happening, the change is happening. And third is, I think, the storytelling. What you're doing here, Shireen, I've shared this before with you. I think it's very important. When other women see women in positions of power, when they see them taking charge of their own decisions and also making a success out of it, that story becomes the mainstream narrative. And not just in boardrooms, but more importantly, at dining tables.
Yes. Yes, we do need to have these conversations at the dining table and dining tables across the country, the length and breadth. But Aparna, I want to address two very important issues with you. One, of course, you know, your own challenge of dealing with being bipolar and coming out there and talking about it and actually writing a book about it and spending a lot of your time addressing this issue, which has now become something that is being mainstreamed, or at least the attempt is to mainstream it as far as large corporations are concerned. The other, you know, to Naiyya's point about leadership and designing thoughtful leadership, you know, what have been the big changes that you've seen as you've observed corporate India and its evolution?
So let me ask you a question, Shireen. Out of all the hundreds of CEOs interviews that you've done over the years, how often has the term psychological safety come up at all?
Not even once.
Yeah. And actually, if you see the data and the research, something
but
like...
But the good news is that we've had male CEOs talking about menopause. So that I have to say is a win.
That's good. Yeah. So the point I'm trying to say is that, you know, when it comes to mental health in the workplace, something like psychological safety is probably one of the biggest factors that contribute to high-performing teams. But it's still not a word that we're using. You know, we need many more Radhika Guptas out there who are talking about what they went through, right? And I think the conversation around mental health in India is a bit like what climate change was 15 years ago. We were just coming to terms with it. And it needs safe spaces. We need to normalize it. We need to be able to just talk about it, just like we're talking about gender now. And I think companies have actually now a lot of budgets for gender diversity. It's a program that's being taken quite seriously at a strategic level by CEOs, by you know, sometimes maybe there's more talk than action, but it's still being taken. When it comes to issues like mental health, it's still a very, very early stage conversation, although there's a direct correlation with productivity and efficiency and, you know, all the things that we do care about in the corporate workplace. So I think that the thing is, you know, what I've seen since my book has come out, I've done probably over 100 conversations, and they've been anywhere from an art gallery to a steel factory to an army cantonment to a corporate headquarters. So we can actually talk about it anywhere. It's just a question of having the intent to have that conversation and not being scared by it.